Hi everyone, welcome back to DMC TV. I'm here today with my good friend Callum. You might have seen him before on the Why Don't Football Fans Push Back stream. Very good stream, I'd recommend. There's been a lot of abuse targeted towards referees this weekend in the Premier League. There's been lots of decisions and inconsistencies which have got a lot of people flared up. Some too much in my opinion. It's quite sad, but I'm here to talk to Callum today. He's been a former referee in youth football. I have myself as well. And we're just going to discuss why he became a referee, what he enjoyed about it, some of his bad experiences, and what needs to be done to reduce referee abuse. So yeah, Callum, thanks for joining me, sir.
Happy to be here.
How you doing? So I want to first ask you, why did you want to become a football referee?
I don't think it's something that I wanted to do necessarily. Through playing football, people I knew were doing it at my age when I was 14 as a way of making money.
Yeah.
At age 14 you can't make money anyway, can you? So I went to the course in Enfield down the road. It's like a 6 or 7 session thing. 7 or 8.
7 from memory, yeah.
Yeah, and I find it quite interesting. I did find it quite interesting.
You actually learn some things about football, so
Yeah, you had no idea.
The old obscure rule you're just not aware of.
Yeah. So it wasn't, I sort of fell into it. Then when I started, I did enjoy it a lot, I must say. But so I sort of fell into it. It was not something that I just...
Yeah.
So I started to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's good money as well at that age. I mean, like you said,
money.
I started when I was 17, and I think at the time you get like 25 quid for like 70 minutes work, like a 35-minute half game, which when you're 17, obviously in full-time education, that's like brilliant. As you get older and you work full-time, it depreciates in value, but it's a really good way to make money.
So cash in hand for a 14-year-old for an hour's work.
No tax, that's brilliant, it's brilliant. Yeah. So how would you describe your experience in youth football as a whole?
Overall, it's got a lot of pros, a lot of cons as well. Obviously, 14 is still very young, isn't it, to start refereeing?
Sure.
You're still a kid yourself, essentially. I know you're grown up, but essentially you're a kid.
Yeah.
The main pro is obviously the money's nice. I think you have to, as a person, you sort of grow, because you have to sort of be a bit tougher, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be thin-skinned and be a referee, you just can't be.
But as you do it more and more often, you get more and more confident, and you do become better, don't you?
You do.
It sounds silly to say you become better, but you do, because you learn how to deal with things, how to talk to people, and over time become more confident.
In different scenarios, yeah. I don't know, on a slight tangent, do you think referee abuse about 10 years ago, when we might have started around then, was worse than it is now?
It's hard to say, because I'm not refereeing anymore. I think at the top level it's worse now than what it was 10 years ago, but I think it's always something that's been there. They try to put more like a spotlight, don't they, to try and emphasise how things can be done and how to change things, but ultimately there's ultimately one idiot, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, they do start, I think it sort of has to change at like a societal level, which obviously the FA can't do. They put in stuff like, do you remember the respect barriers where all the parents had to stand? It's nice, it's good for linesmen and subs and officials. It's nothing worse than having 10 parents on the line, literally on the white line, when you're trying to be a linesman or something, but I think they're sort of, what's the word, they're just not real like solutions to the issues of abuse towards referees, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think you have to teach people young that it's not right. Because if you get a kid who goes to the game who's 7 or 8 and his old man's giving abuse, he thinks in his head, that's fine. Yeah. And he'll do it himself, and you've probably seen that yourself.
No, of course, like, it's the ones they look up to, dad or granddad.
So then
effing and blinding. Just shouting the referees away. Like tens of thousands of people chanting that in a football match.
Yeah, so it's not
it's just shocking. It's just so bad.
Yeah.
But they just think that's normal, and people still do it all the time.
I'd say overall I did enjoy it. Enjoy it. It helps you to grow as a person. Good way of making money, and you sort of learn more about the game. If it makes sense. You sort of learn different things you didn't know before, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
But pros and cons.
So you've mentioned you dealt with different situations from this experience. So how did you manage the games you were reffing and the different personalities in the game?
I think every situation is a bit different, isn't it? You have to take it sort of at face value, whether that's prior knowledge or how you think someone might react to certain things. Most of the time, I try not to engage. So if you're getting,
what do you mean by that? Yeah.
So if someone just shouting every single time, I'm quite happy to ignore it and just think, just carry refereeing, do what I need to do.
Are these players or parents?
either or. Players, I might say that's enough or whatever. But parents, they can just moan all they want. It doesn't really affect me that much. And after the game, if they come to you in a nice way, I can more happy to discuss.
Sure.
They can say, "Oh, that one over there." I'll say my point of view. They'll say theirs. But that never happened, did it? It was always had to get personal and you're this, you're that, blah blah blah. It's just like I don't know. It didn't really bother me. When I was younger, it did. My dad used to come in me. He used to sort of have a word with them. But as I got older, I just didn't really care. I just sort of
when you're a 14, 15-year-old kid and you've got like 30, 40-year-old men saying stuff to you,
it's a bit
like it's you probably don't think it at the time, but when you look back on it, it's so pathetic.
Yeah, when you look at that, you said like that. We look at the context because it's like football. They think it's okay.
Yeah.
But if that happened in Australia, they'd be like,
anywhere on the street or anywhere else.
Like,
I think people think they can abuse like retail staff in the same way because they know there's no consequence.
Yeah.
And I think referees are the same. There's basically no consequence of abusing referees.
They said to us when we were refereeing, if someone's been abusive, as a referee, you have to have the right to ask them to leave.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that?
I was going to do it once, and I'll tell you why. So I was refereeing a game, and it's always the games that are tight, like the 2-2s, the 2-1s, whatever. If it's 6-0, no one cares. Like literally no one cares.
So that's the easiest one, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're quite boring as well at the same time. But yeah, they are easy. So this game, there was nothing going on, and out of nowhere, there was sort of a bad foul on a player, and then all of a sudden, this bloke runs on the pitch like a grown man, and it was an under-16 game from memory. It was in it was down the road, and this bloke runs on the pitch. This big, probably late 20s fella, and he pushes this child, like the guy who did the bad foul over. Like this man runs on and pushes a 16-year-old to the floor. And it didn't cause a brawl as such, it causes a lot of like push and shoving, but no punches. And the manager sent it away straight away. I was literally about to be like, you've got to go, but I didn't get the chance to, if that makes sense. But you get pathetic examples like that, which are just nothing even towards me. That's the sort of stuff that does go on at a youth football match.
Yeah.
Did you ever send anyone away?
No, what I do normally, I talk to both managers beforehand and say, ultimately, you're in charge, this is your team, and you're responsible for the parents as well. And if I felt that they were being a bit too much, one parent was, but like I said, I ignore it a lot of the time, but there's levels you can get to.
Yeah.
So a couple of times I'd ask the manager to say, listen, you've got to tell him to stop shouting, who has to go.
And did you think they were usually good? Because there was one or two times you'd speak to a manager about a parent, and they try and fob you off.
Yeah.
Like they're like, okay, just get on with it, and you're like, well, no.
Yeah.
You've got to like deal with this. This is just not on.
Yeah, the manager's got a lot of responsibility, doesn't he, for his players, how they, and his parents as well. He does, because he sort of sets the tone, how they carry themselves as a club, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, some managers are better than others, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of managers are just parents from the year before who promote themselves, so they're sort of part of the game. Not the game, but you know what I mean, part of the crew.
Yeah, no, they do have a lot of pressure as well, I'd say, like you say. There's a lot of rubbish associated with that, especially if you're managing a bad team. You've got to do the training every week, the games, and if you turn up, teams losing, then you've got players not turning up, and you've got parents moaning at you for not picking their kids. So they have a lot of rubbish as well, and that's when it sometimes spills over and is a target towards refs, I think.
I think the main root of the issues at youth football, it sounds silly, but parents can't accept that the kid's not so good. That's the main
issue.
issue.
Do you think? Really?
If their kid's like losing or not quite up to speed, they just can't accept it, and they just take it out on the referee, or sometimes the player. It's quite sad, the player.
I've never heard that opinion.
That's my opinion.
That's really thrown me.
Because they can't accept that they in their head, this is their perfect child.
Yeah.
He's going to be the next next star boy for England or whatever, and he's not. Because obviously it's very hard to make it. It's difficult. And then rather than just accepting it and being not supportive, they take it on the kids, or the referee, or the manager. And it's everyone else's fault but the kids.
There's nothing wrong with trying to win, is there?
Yeah.
But when you like screaming and shouting at kids or at other parents or other managers or referees, I do anyway. Like I love football, but not as much as you and other people in our group, I'd say. And sometimes some of the rubbish I see people like get so wound up at, I'm just a bit like, all right, come on now. There's more to life than this sort of thing.
It is just a game essentially, but yeah. When you really take a step back and look at it, it's just a game.
Yeah. So what were some of the best things or most enjoyable aspects of being a ref for you?
Most enjoyable. It's nice in the summer, isn't it? If you ever did the tournaments, they're very nice.
Never done them, but yeah.
They're brilliant. So you're there for the day, and it's sort of got a not as so competitive atmosphere because everyone's sort of they're there for the day.
Yeah.
And it's very quick games.
Yeah.
It's just that's one of my favourite ones. The big thing is the weather for me. When it's freezing cold, it's hard work, isn't it? Going out there. And
So on those like really wet pitches in the mud, and your studs are just full of mud, and it makes it that bit harder to run around.
yeah,
And then the ball gets hoofed out from the penalty area clearance, and you've got to run all the way up the pitch. And like, it's just and the spray. Some of the sprints as well could be quite knackering.
yeah. Obviously, there's bad times, but overall, most of the time, if you get good teams, good managers, and a nice environment, it can be very enjoyable.
It can be. Yeah.
So sometimes you forget you get paid to do it, don't you? Sometimes.
It's true. It can be most of this. I'd say 70% of the games I've done, I've gone, I've come home.
Yeah.
I might get the odd comment, but nothing.
Yeah.
There's some games we'll talk about in a minute, some bad experiences, but the vast majority, especially like if you're refereeing like 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds, they're still quite innocent.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's just harmless, isn't it? It's just like it's quite enjoyable to watch sometimes.
and if they foul each other, they're saying sorry to each other.
Yeah.
Like, compared to even like 14, 15-year-olds and older,
Mm.
when you're effing and blinding each other, it's like you say, most of the adults, the coaches are like really good people on the whole. You get some wrong ones, but no, it's quite a good experience on the whole. So.
Yeah. What's your best experience, you say?
Best experience. I don't know if there's a specific incident. I mean, I've refereed some really good games. I once refereed you lot.
Oh yeah.
I won't mention the teams, but it was a 2-2 draw, and it was. I think that's the best game I've ever refereed. Like, it was an under-18s game. Incidentally, it was the same age, which I don't know if that should be allowed, but it was a really the opposition team were 2-0 up, and Callum's team came back to 2-2. And Callum's team should not have got anything out of this game. Put it that way. It should have been a slam dunk, but that was just a fantastic game to referee.
Yeah, I remember it clearly.
So, what were some of the worst things you experienced as a ref? Some of the bad days.
The worst things I experienced, most of them was when I was younger. I didn't know how to manage it correctly. Because sometimes you go to a game and straight away you get an abuse, and you can nip it in the bud straight away, and it can sort of stop. When I was younger, you're young, you just sort of just ignore it, and it carries on and on. The worst time, probably, I won't say the team, but this manager from the top down, just everyone was just shouting the whole game.
What age group was this?
They were under 15, and they were like, straight away, they're very gobby and very mouthy. So the manager was, something had changed, he just ignored it.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, fine, just carry on. And the whole game was just non-stop. But I don't, like I said, I just carry on. And then after the game, so I turned to my side. I was on the same side as the home manager. I shook his hand. I went to walk off. I thought I'm going to go. Well, I have to shake his hand. The whole gesture is it's been a good game or good sport. I want to shake your hand. Yeah. So I'm walking to my car. And he's running behind me. Why am I shaking my hand? I said I want to. He's put his hand off. He's like in front of me. Shook my hand. I said, okay, thank you. I'm going to go. And he just, I'm going to report you, this is awful. And he actually did put in a report against me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Really?
I had to get the home manager to then give whatever happened, and nothing happened from it. But just, he got so worked up because I didn't shake his hand. That was the main thing. But I don't think that's something you have to do.
Of course you don't.
If someone's not being a good sport or whatever,
yeah, it's like imagine being shouted at for like 80, 90 minutes and then.
Well, I tell you, I was walking away, he ran across the pitch, I was walking to the car park, and ran in front of me, he made a massive scene.
Like loads of
shouting, I'm going to report him, everyone's looking at us, and I thought, I just carried on walking, I thought, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But if that hadn't happened to me when I was like maybe 18 then, I just didn't care. But when I was younger, I probably would have
just given in.
Given in. I was being maybe a bit stubborn, but I can be stubborn. I want to be stubborn.
I don't think you've done anything wrong there. Like, imagine this. Like, this is how deluded some of these people are. They'll scream and shout at you for 8 minutes, and they think there's nothing wrong with it. But if you said one thing to them, like you didn't shake his hand, and he's flipped, and he's actually been so pathetic as to put in a report against you for not shaking.
But when I was younger, I used to sort of ignore it, and my dad would come because obviously he was driving around to the games. I remember one very clearly. He was somewhere at Enfield, and the ball, Sean shot hit the bar and bounced down into the line and came back out. And someone's like, right there beside, oh, it's over the line, ref. And I just sort of, no. I just carried on. My dad at the end had a massive row with him.
Really?
A lot of time when I was young, my dad was doing the arguing, and I was
Yeah.
sort of just there, just
Yeah.
just waiting for him to fucking go. Can we go now?
We go now.
But I think
yeah.
overall, something that as I got older, and like I said, the experience, you know how to deal with better.
And you just, when you're older,
Just confident.
they try it as well when you're younger. They try and
Yeah.
intimidate you more, which is
Of course.
really wrong. But that's
It's
what
very wrong,
people
but
do.
people don't care.
It's what people do. No, I was 17 when I started, so 14 is way younger, so I can understand your dad doing that. When my dad used to come to watch me, and he never had to interfere, I always said, don't say anything. Doesn't matter how much abuse I'm getting, don't say anything. But if anyone attacks me, like physically,
Yeah, that's different.
yeah, which is, I'll get that to in a minute, which has almost happened once, never actually happened. But yeah, it's because then you get the comments like, "Oh, you need daddy to protect you."
Yeah.
But if you're 15, obviously that's not the case. Like when you've got a 4-year-old bloke saying something to you, it's like pathetic.
So, what's your worst one or worst couple you've experienced? Did you say?
Where the team was 2-1 up, and another team equalised in the last minute, and it was a controversial offside. So what happened was, the ball was cleared, and this boy might have been inside his half or just on the other side of the half, and ran on and scored. You know how the linesmen's are the dads?
Yeah.
The linesman should have been at the halfway line. He was on the goal line, in line with probably his son, talking to his son. And from the goal line, he's put his flag up. So I've taken no notice of him because he's about 40 yards away from it. And I've let play go on, they've scored. And I was getting all sorts of abuse at the end. And I've sent this boy off who said a few things to me, under 16s, and he tried to run at me. He tried to run and attack me. And 3 or 4 of his mates were holding him back. I nearly left that day without getting my money.
Did you not get paid before games?
No, because sometimes they're so awkward about it, aren't they? Yeah, I'll pay you later, mate, I'll pay you later, I haven't got the money. Especially nowadays, they're like, oh, who's got cash nowadays? Did you always get paid beforehand?
Yeah, but I stopped refereeing before you, so I stopped refereeing about 2018.
Yeah.
So that's not that long ago, but back then it was always cash. And I'd
Yeah.
always insist on cash beforehand. I know it's awkward.
It is some
But you just have to think in certain circumstances.
like that, you
try.
just want to walk away, don't you, rather than wait for it. Thankfully, it was the team that wasn't moaning at me that had to pay me, if that makes sense. The other stuff, I won't go into too much details. I've had my bag spat on at half time
Yeah,
once.
we told me that one.
Because I sent a boy off in the first half, came back to my bag and there's saliva all over it. Presumably it was this boy, but I couldn't prove it. I've had a few things, which are all shocking incidents when you think you're refereeing a game of youth football.
If you turn to a game and the referee, the pitch is like iced or waterlogged, you have to call it off.
Yeah,
But you still get half the fee, don't you?
dude, I've never had
So
that
we used to
done.
always say if it doesn't mess up, you always get half the fee. So I turned to a game, it was freezing cold and the pitch was like rock solid. I thought the complex it was like under 8s.
Yeah,
If someone pulls over and breaks their arm, they would say, why did you play?
yeah, exactly. It would all be your fault as well.
Yeah, come back to me.
Like,
So then I said, I can't play, let's come in. Oh no, it's alright, I thought, no, I can't do it. I said, oh, it's up to you. I said, no, I can't do it. And then asking for the money was just like a massive thing.
was it?
They didn't know about it. I said, just do half the fee. It was £13, but
Yeah.
it's not a lot of money, is it?
Yeah.
I've driven all the way to wherever it was. Just £30, not a lot, is it?
But they were awkward. Like,
Just made it very difficult.
what did they say?
Kept on saying we can play the game, I said, no, look, you can't. And it was just, people just, I feel like the referees get like undermined, don't they? They sort of get undermined and treated like...
Yeah, they try and just mug you off because it doesn't matter what decision you give on the pitch, you're going to have half the people moaning at you.
Yeah, regardless, yeah.
It's like, and it's also, you know, because like when you used to play, when both used to play, we probably did this as well, which is wrong. If you made a few mistakes and you know you fouled someone, you still moan at the ref, like,
Yeah.
which is really like wrong, the bad thing about football. And that still happens, even though the player knows they're in the wrong, they'll still moan. Because who did the famous quote? It's when you moan at a ref, you're not trying to influence that decision. You're trying to influence future decisions in
Was
that
it
game.
Fergie who said that?
It might have been, and it's so true.
Yeah.
Because do you think, as a ref, you know straight away when you've made a wrong decision based on the reaction?
Yeah.
You know straight away, but you can't change your mind there and then because you just look
Well, the
pathetic.
thing is, you have a split second to make a decision. It's not like you're going
It's not like VAR.
You've got VAR.
Yeah.
Even with VAR, you
Still
still
don't
don't know. Exactly, you still don't know. You sort of know by the general reaction by the players, not the man, not the start and the players' reactions.
Yeah, I agree.
The person who's got lucky or who's got decisions got their way.
They're very quiet.
Yeah.
The other ones going mad.
Yeah.
But you, like you say, you can't change your mind there and then.
Yeah.
But with VAR is a very interesting thing. The Ericsson one at the weekend, you said before we spoke on camera, you think it was not a foul.
Yeah.
And I think it was a foul. and we've got every camera angle possible,
And
we still don't agree.
That shows that sometimes, in that situation, that certain one, if you look at it for that long, it's not clear and obvious, then you shouldn't overturn it, I don't think.
Agreed. But this is what's clear and obvious. What's clear and obvious to one person? You see, with tennis, Hawkeye, whatever it is, it's in or out.
Yeah.
Goal line technology, it's a goal and
same
knockout.
cricket as well. Cricket.
Yeah, for LBWs and stuff, yeah, I guess. With football, even though, obviously, like, it's not much different to football fans, we're two youth referees.
Yeah.
We've seen an incident on camera, and we don't agree.
Yeah.
That just shows you, like, and people I know, some sets are foul, some sets not a foul. So even with all the this is maybe why VAR's more of an issue in some ways than a solution. Because if the referee didn't have VAR, the goal would have been given and the game would have carried on.
It would have been a different game as well.
Of course, yeah, it changes everything.
Yeah.
I mean, VAR's a topic for another day, but I just think that's a really interesting thing in football. You can have all the angles in the world, you can still disagree on something.
And that's not even me being biased because I'm a Spurs fan, so that's just not even me trying to say. It's just.
Well, no, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Exactly,
I think it's a foul.
Yeah.
Like,
So that
so it just shows you.
emphasises the point. Yeah.
So to reduce abuse towards officials, what needs to change?
I think it's very hard to change a lot. You can do small things. It has to start from the top down. And the way some of these players in the Premier League react to referees is outrageous. I think.
Shocking, yeah.
And it's just like treated like it's normal.
Yeah.
So, but I think they should take a look at how other sports do it, like in rugby. Like rugby is never really an issue, is there? In terms of the referee's in full control, isn't he? He's never really influenced by anything.
So have you? I don't know how much you're into rugby. I'm not into club rugby, but Dylan Hartley, I think, swore at a referee once.
Yeah.
He was sent off.
Yeah.
That's it, gone. And the commentator's like, if you swung him, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they did that in a football match?
Everyone be off. Everyone does it all the time.
And you'd have the pundits being like, oh, and the fans, and
Yeah.
football's quite a unique sport in that sense, which
Yeah.
it's a unique sport in that sense. This doesn't happen in other sports.
But the thing is, like I said, the referee's got 1 second to make a decision. These pundits and commentators and players have got the luxury of watching other. So like they can say on commentary, "Oh, that's not a foul."
Yeah.
And then if they think they're wrong on the replay, they can keep on saying it.
Yeah.
It's on the referee. The referee's got that wrong. But then, if they say it's a foul and it's not a foul, they've got the luxury of saying, "Oh no, I was wrong. There's a video there. I can watch that."
There's no
The referee's not got
yeah,
that.
exactly. I think people would now say, well, but you've got VAR now. But I think like we just said...
Can't VAR everything.
Yeah, exactly. And like we just said, even though you can disagree still. Do you remember the Jamie Vardy penalty incident a few years ago?
Yeah.
How long was that spoken about?
Yeah.
I'm still not sure if it was a foul or not.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. Would you say the players should be sent off?
What, for swearing?
Swearing at an official?
If they put it as like a rule that you can swear it off, they would stop, wouldn't they? It would get stopped out.
You'd think so.
But because they know they can get away with it, they'll keep on doing it.
I think it'd be quite hard at the start, but referees would just have to be found with it.
There'd be a lot of 1-9v9 games.
Probably would be, but like, I don't know. It's like I don't know how much of a comparison it is. Do you remember when with the spray for free kicks and stuff? When that first came in, because remember before that, some of the encroachment
was outrageous.
You'd be like 7 yards away by the time the ball's kicked. But because there's actually a line there in the end, you can't defend yourself.
Yeah, but when that first rolled out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, look at this!" It's outrageous. But now it's just sort of like part of the game.
Do you think everyone was critical of it? I don't remember that.
Not critical. Everyone just thought it was just strange, didn't they? Everyone
It seems weird at the time, but it's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like you say, because obviously when there was no line there before, you could just be like, what you want about? But when there's a line there, you can see you clearly walk past it. It's like, you just can't defend yourself. I'd love to think players would get sent off for swearing. I would love it as like a basis, but can't see it happening.
Ultimately, it comes down to, at youth level, it comes down to the parents, I think. They've got to be able to contain themselves. Because if they can't, like I said earlier, if someone's son sees the old man shouting referee, he thinks it's okay.
Yeah.
It just carries on and on and on forever, doesn't it?
Never ends, just a circle, isn't it?
Just an endless
cycle. It just never stops.
So, I think it has to be done from the top down. Something's got to be done from FA or Premier League to say you can't just abuse referees. You can't just, you know. I don't know if it's a couple of years ago. I want to come to mind was Liverpool. I think it was Andy Robertson after the game.
Was it Burnley? Yeah, Liverpool Burnley. Yeah.
And just like the game was over. It's finished.
And I think they already won the league maybe at that point. Maybe they might have. It was like a
Maybe.
1-1 draw with Burnley.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If they won that game, you could probably win a KLS. Would have walked off. It's only when it affects results.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It's just non-stop. The way he's talking about referee, I thought, bloody hell.
Yeah, he was
that's just-
that was embarrassing.
There has to be some sort of like respect there, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But it's just like there's just the pundits, it's the media, it's just everything. And like, if you see during the week when they announce like the referees for the games, the weekends, teams like Rex straight away, oh, he's awful, he did this, that wrong, that wrong. There's no sort of, they won't forget, they'll remember the things he got right.
It's the sort of job you can do everything right, but then one or two things, and then that's what you're.
You do one thing wrong, and then that's it.
It's like cleaners in a building. You could not notice there's cleaners in the building for like years, but as soon as the cleaners like real or stop cleaning properly, you notice it straight away. Like it's the same sort of principle.
It's definitely a very hard job. And
It is. The ones who moan about refs have never done it.
yeah.
They've never done it. They've got no idea how hard it is. Like it just is. Like, it's just a hard job.
I have to agree.
Thanks very much, Cal, for that today.
I hope you enjoyed that. Please subscribe if you've not done so already. Many thanks for watching. Bye.